Yeah.
Welcome to MsMojo, and today we're shining light on Hollywood's grim history of queer-coding villains.
It rubs the lotion on its skin or else it gets the hose again.
From Hays Code-era scoundrels to Disney's gender-bending baddies, audiences have long been bombarded with the message that queerness is equated with, or even a cause for villainy.
Marvelous, isn't it?
These evil characters' sexualities are never outright confirmed, but the subtext crafted by filmmakers implies that there's something off about them.
More than idle curiosity prompted my question.
So why this obsession with devilish wrongdoers who seem to defy heteronormativity? Here's everything you need to know about queer-coded villains on screen, and the disturbing reasons why we're meant to be afraid of them.
Why are you looking at me that way? When I do? Yes, you'll do very well indeed.
Classic Hollywood. The 1900s were not kind to queer people, who had to fight for their rights and equal treatment. And so, society's historic prejudice against same-sex attraction cropped up in filmmaking time and time again. Adopted in the 30s, the Hays Code established guidelines for what could and could not be shown on screen. Of course, this meant that any depiction of gayness, or as the code called it, sex perversion, was strictly forbidden.
The code sets up high standards of performance for motion picture producers. It states the considerations which good taste and community value make necessary in this universal form of entertainment.
In order to get past censors, directors had to be incredibly careful about how they profiled queer characters. Hence, the term queer coding.
It always happens. I meet somebody who I like and admire, and I open my mouth too much.
That's all right, forget it. I guess I'm a little jittery.
Oh, there's a new cure for that. Waiter.
Yes, sir.
Scotch and plain water, please. A pair. Doubles. The only kind of doubles I play.
When these characters did appear in film, they were often morally bankrupt bad guys who had to be punished for their sins by the end of the story. Another requirement of the code. In a sense, filmmakers were condemning these antagonists for everything they stood for, their subtle queerness wrapped up in all the terrible things wrong with them.
For all its efforts, the production code didn't erase homosexuals from the screen. It just made them harder to find. And now they had a new identity, as cold-blooded villains.
In 1941's The Maltese Falcon, we are first made aware of the villain's presence via a pungent perfume.
Gardenia.
Quick, darling, in with him.
In the novel the noir is based on, criminal Joel Cairo is outwardly referred to as a, quote, queer fairy. However, in the film, this characterization had to be hidden in his eccentricities.
You stupid fathead, you!
Actor Peter Lorre played Cairo with effeminate mannerisms, constantly gnawing at his phallic cane.
I shouldn't think it would be necessary to remind you, Mr. Spade, that you may have the Falcon, but we certainly have you.
Just a year prior, Hitchcock's Rebecca released with not one, but two queer-coded villains. The iconic Mrs. Danvers is fueled by a complex for the late aristocrat she once waited on.
I keep her underwear on this side.
Dandy secondary antagonist Jack Favell is presented as hyper, manipulative, and afflicted with incestuous cravings.
I wish I had a young bride of 3 months waiting for me at home. I'm just a lonely old bachelor.
Given that homosexuality was once considered a perversion, it's no coincidence that he's written to participate in deviant desires.
I am Rebecca's favorite cousin. Toodaloo.
Hitchcock clearly had a penchant for the queer-coded villain, because he based the antagonists of his 1948 film Rope on lovers/killers Nathan Leopold and Richard Loeb.
Don't remember feeling very much of anything until his body went limp, and I knew it was over.
And then?
Then I felt tremendously exhilarated.
In the actual 1924 trial, the two men were described by prosecutors as, quote, cowardly perverts, whose sexualities actually spurred their vile actions. By today's standards, this idea that same-sex attraction engenders violent crime is obviously ludicrous. And of course, Rope is in many ways a product of its time. But this highlights precisely how dangerous real-world stereotypes bleed into film and reaffirm negative beliefs about queer people.
We knew that they were gay, yeah, sure. I mean, nobody said anything about it.
This was 1947. Let's not forget that. But that was one of the points of the film, in a way.
Plenty of female queer-coded villains have received similar historic treatments as well. Like with most vampire flicks, the hedonistic subtext is palpable in the 1936 film Dracula's Daughter. The female gaze is weaponized here, as reluctant monster Maria undresses and feasts upon women in her Chelsea apartment.
I suppose you'll want these pulled down, won't you? Yes.
Plenty of dialogue points to Maria's wish to escape this lifestyle and live a normal life.
The spell is broken. I can live a normal life now. Think normal things.
Caged, a 1950 noir set in a female prison, depicts the ways in which women behind bars must lean on one another in more ways than one. Filmmakers hardly hid the fact that Big Bad Elvira is a lesbian.
She's a cute trick.
In the end, protagonist Marie abandons her morals and her femininity to join the ranks of Elvira's gang.
There's supposed to be a social message to all this. Isn't it terrible to go to prison? Isn't it terrible to lose your femininity? Isn't it terrible for a woman to go hard?
In both Dracula's Daughter and Caged, the femme fatale is older, and her maternal seduction is decidedly poisonous. These wicked women are shown to lead younger girls astray, which was a common fear about lesbians at the time. There's also a masculine edge to their composition, as if they're filling in for an enigmatic man who commands and exploits attention from women.
What's your name? How'd you hurt your hand?
I'm a big girl, and this isn't my first year away from home. Her name is Marie Allen.
This trick of toying with gender roles and expression is commonly used when Hollywood queer codes villains. It's even occurred in some incredibly unexpected places. Disney films. Children's programming has regularly followed this formula, most notably Walt Disney Studios. Though many of the films we're about to discuss were created well after the Hays Code was abandoned in 1968, the seeds continued to germinate through decades of repetitive tropes in filmmaking.
Peter Pan will be blasted out of Neverland forever.
Quick disclaimer, we're not here to argue that the Disney villains were specifically designed to be queer, or to signal to kids that being queer is terribly wicked. Suffice it to say, the stain of Hays-era crooks seeped into the behaviors, quirks, and dark desires audiences came to expect from antagonists.
I'll lock you in my fungeon.
So, when put into context, a compelling case can be made.
That's the most important piece of evidence we've heard yet. Write that down!
Disney villains are treated like outcasts. They've been relegated to the sidelines by a society that doesn't wish to participate in their fancies. Sound familiar?
Life's not fair, is it?
Avid Disney fans have long pointed out the ways in which they encapsulate elements of the queer experience. And their treacherous schemes are supplemented with designs that present them in a peculiar light, subconsciously echoing their earlier counterparts.
You will remember to smile for the camera, won't you? Say cheese.
Many of the queer-coded male Disney villains are fitted with feminine features. Take Ratcliffe's magenta wardrobe and hair bows, for instance.
Think how they squirm when they see how I glitter.
The men often have dark shadows around their eyes too, which resembles makeup. Looking at you, Jafar. King John, the sissy lion in Robin Hood, has mommy issues and routinely sucks on his thumb.
Mommy! I've got a dirty thumb.
King Candy of Wreck-It Ralph lives in a pink princess castle he stole from a little girl.
Hello, my royal subjects! Have some candy. Thank you for that stirring introduction, Fowlerville.
On the other hand, queer-coded female villains are turned into masculine tyrants. Their hair is short, they take up space, and their voices are deep.
Search for a maid of 16 with hair of sunshine gold and lips red as the rose.
Cruella de Vil, who's based on a queer actress, can be read as a cautionary tale for the rotten result of a woman exchanging marriage and motherly duties for self-serving whimsies.
Oh, I'd like a nice fur, but there are so many other things.
Sweet, simple Anita. I know. This horrid little house is your dream castle.
Meanwhile, the sharp-jawed evil queen spends most of the film obsessing over her stepdaughter's beauty.
She is more fair than thee.
Alas for her.
One of the clearest examples of a queer-coded Disney villain is The Lion King's Scar.
Oh, I shall practice my curtsy.
He's meek compared to Mufasa, and has been overlooked by a natural order that values hyper-masculinity.
I'm afraid I'm at the shallow end of the gene pool.
His effeminate features are not unlike drag costuming, and Jeremy Irons delivers a deliciously campy performance.
I'm surrounded by idiots.
Scar's tempered, calculated approach to usurping the throne harkens back to the mincing queer-coded villains before him.
Is that a challenge? Temper. I wouldn't dream of challenging you.
So while there's obviously no canon where Scar is secretly pining after other male lions, his construction is still blatantly on the nose when contrasted with Hollywood queer coding that demonizes perceived homosexual traits. Ursula is an over-the-top example too, especially given that she isn't just inspired by the loose idea of a queer person, rather explicitly drawing from drag artist Divine.
Could you give us some of your political beliefs?
Kill everyone now! Condone first-degree murder!
The Little Mermaid is steeped in queer history, and Ursula is no exception. She speaks to the importance of body language, delivering a powerful ballad to celebrate her conniving trickery. In modern terms, Ursula boots the house down.
Go ahead and sign the scroll! Flotsam Jetsam, now I've got her, boys! The boss is on a roll!
When it comes to Beauty and the Beast, it's worth mentioning how baddie underling LeFou crushes hard on his superior Gaston.
Oh, there's no man in town half as manly. Perfect, the pure paragon.
In the live-action remake, audiences were promised explicit confirmation regarding his formerly hushed sexuality. What we got instead was about 3 seconds of him dancing with another man. So while Disney tends to play it safe when it comes to true queer representation, one can always look to the villains for all of their codified, norm-shattering sinfulness.
For years, that insufferable pipsqueak has interfered with my plans. I haven't had a moment's peace of mind.
Slashers. No conversation on queer-coded villains is complete without discussing the most egregious offender out there, the cross-dressing killer.
We have the same color eyes.
No.
Dad.
No.
Most prominent in smutty horror films of the 80s and 90s, this character type actually has roots in iconic 1960 slasher Psycho. Unsurprisingly directed by Alfred Hitchcock, the story follows madman Norman Bates, who gets his kicks by dressing as his mother while he commits a string of murders. The success of this film spawned decades of menacing sociopaths on screen who don women's clothing to signal to audiences that there's something deeply unwell within them. Real-life serial killer Ed Gein was the inspiration for Bates, and a number of others after. One copycat, Leatherface, is portrayed as a thick brute, but he inexplicably starts dressing as a woman in one of the sequels for no other reason than to prey on viewers' unease about seeing a man in drag.
The only reason for any of this is that he's a psycho and he gets off on it.
Another Gein-inspired villain is Buffalo Bill from The Silence of the Lambs.
He's making himself a woman's suit, Mr. Crawford, out of real women.
In a famous scene, Bill records himself as he applies makeup and tucks his genitals. The way he plays with gender is presented as a mental impairment, a sign of psychosis. After all, his crimes are depraved beyond what investigators have ever seen before.
Billy hates his own identity, you see, and he thinks that makes him a transsexual. But his pathology is 1,000 times more savage and more terrifying.
A common thread that unites these cross-dressing killers is a complicated relationship with their mothers. Whether hypersexualizing her or secretly wanting to be her, this link compounds the twisted nature of their erotically demented minds.
He'd dress up, even to a cheap wig he bought. He'd walk about the house, sit in her chair, speak in her voice. He tried to be his mother.
It also aims to rationalize the desire to cross-dress, inaccurately watering down this queer experience into something born out of paraphilia.
What needs does he serve by killing?
Anger. Social acceptance and sexual frustration.
These depictions reinforce negative stereotypes that anyone who cross-dresses, or may actually be transgender, is, quote, crazy. Rather than codifying queerness, it's made explicit in Dress to Kill, where the murderer's gender dysphoria is described as multiple personality disorder.
Bobby came to me to get psychiatric approval for a sex reassignment operation. I thought he was unstable, and Elliot confirmed my diagnosis. Opposite sexes inhabiting the same body. The sex change operation was to resolve the conflict. But as much as Bobby tried to get it, Elliot blocked it.
This appears again in Split, where James McAvoy plays a psychopath with several personas, one of which, Patricia, requires him to wear female clothing.
Don't worry. I'll talk to him. He listens to me.
These gross plot points are a dark evolution of the queer-coded villain, where the vaguely misrepresented idea of being transgender can be the creepy compulsion that makes a killer tick. This is even played as a twist ending, when it's revealed that the killer was parading as the opposite sex all along in sleepaway camp.
God, she's a boy.
Like most slashers of this era, a moral code is slipped into the subtext by filmmakers. Don't do drugs, don't have sex, and don't be gay.
People were applauding the death of the villain, but they were also applauding the death of a homosexual.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Looking back at the history of queer-coded villains is a tragically bleak exercise. What's lost by only affording these characters the nuances of queerness is the opportunity to properly flesh out a villainous queer person. On the flip side, what's gained is the subliminal reinforcement of biases against the LGBTQIA+ community. At the end of the day, representation is important, and there's no reason why queer people shouldn't be occasionally presented as duplicitous monsters, as long as it isn't shrewdly correlated to their sexuality.
What's wrong with that guy anyway?
He was a transsexual.
Cinema subtly informs so much of our worldview, especially about people we may not often come into contact with. So, queer characters on screen should reflect reality. Sometimes sweet, sometimes messy, sometimes flawed, and yes, sometimes villainous.
I need you to know that I'm not a bad person. I need to hear you say it. You're not a bad person.
But filmmakers need to do this with care. One of the most offensive aspects of the queer-coded villain trope is how it so fundamentally misunderstands human nature. So next time you sit down to watch a movie, look closely at what drives the villain. Can you identify any suspicious queer coding still at play? Share your thoughts on this complex issue in the comments below.